let's start with Arizona. Arizona Cardinals, as you can see, their needs were corner, wide receiver, offensive line, safety, and running back. Now, the first pick kind of surprised me for Arizona. They went with Zaven Collins out of Tulsa. I think he was maybe a little bit too high at 16 overall, but it's one of their needs, so they believe in him. But another one of those guys that really can play outside linebacker and inside linebacker. So if you look like for the second straight year, Arizona is selecting a hybrid type of player defensively. Isaiah Simmons went early, I think 8th overall, something like that last year. And they had trouble kind of putting him in, giving him some roles. I think there's a fine line in drafting someone like that. You have to either give them an actual position to play and learn and develop, or you just have to, really have trust on the kid that they're able to do it all. And with Arizona, they love to bring pressure. How much have we seen that as Niner fans, right? Vance Joseph really loves to bring his linebackers in. And so getting a guy like Zaven Collins makes sense for their system. So, if that was your guy all along, why risk it, right? Get the pick. Okay, that's understandable. It's not as tough to sell, but the second round pick for me, Rondale Moore, was I think one of the most head scratching picks. Dealt with injury. I feel like Rondale Moore could have been available either later in the draft, maybe third round, but really they're banking on him to be 100% and go back to his like 2019, 2018 form, which he was outstanding. But just think of him as like a bootleg Deebo Samuel. With all due respect, I mean, I don't want to knock Rondale Moore. I'm sure he'll be great, but really, I didn't understand the pick. I feel like there was some good value later in the round, and if that was their guy, they could have traded down, got more picks, and really still could have drafted Rondale Moore. So they're really banking on his upside. I think it's a huge swing for the Cardinals. And if you look at their rivals who also drafted wide receiver later in this round, I think they got better value. They got, you look at the Rams, they got Tutu Atwell. You look at the Seahawks, they got Dwayne Eskridge. So I think those right now are better receivers than Rondale Moore, but we'll kind of wait and see with him. I really feel like the Cardinals went for guys that need development more than anything. And if they can put those pieces together, then they'll be great assets. But where they drafted them, I felt like it was a tad too high for my liking. And let's talk about the Rams for a second. As I mentioned, let's look at their needs. They needed offensive line, corner, linebacker, defensive line, wide receiver. So, the number one rated defense last year still needs, they lost some guys in free agency, but they need to pick up some guys there. So they went wide receiver first. And at first, when I looked at this, I'm like, wow, they went wide receiver. So if you look at their roster at wide receiver, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Van Jefferson, Deshaun Jackson, like how many wide receivers do you need? And so I'm under the belief that the Rams just said, we're picking the best player available at the position need, right? So they've already invested so much money and draft capital in wide receiver, but I feel like Tutu Atwell at 57 overall is a solid move. I really love this kid, and I'm kind of jealous that they got him. Tutu is a really quick receiver. I think they got him at great value. One of those guys that you play in the slot. He's going to bring the speed to the offense. So, again, this is one of the guys that I would have loved with the San Francisco 49ers. Something they truly need: speed to take the top off the defense. So he's a dynamic player. Reminds me a lot of Tyler Lockett from the Seahawks. So maybe they found their Tyler Lockett. I really do think that even though the Rams don't necessarily need a wide receiver, they really did get a good one in Tutu Atwell. So I really can't be mad at that too much, though they still have other needs, which I guess they hope that they've addressed, but we'll see. So Tutu, I think, was a solid pick, and I think the Cardinals actually should have drafted him. Then you have Ernest Jones. Now, Ernest Jones, not really I really didn't understand the pick in the third round. He had a lot of trouble in coverage, looked lost sometimes in coverage, to be honest with you. So I don't know how impactful Ernest Jones is going to be. And if you look back at the draft, Ernest Jones, actually, let me put up the third round here. He got drafted right behind Ambry Thomas from the Niners. But if you really look at how the draft went, they could have drafted Baron Browning, linebacker from Ohio State. He went to Denver to end the third round at 105. Or they could have gotten Jabril Cox from LSU. He was still on the board. He actually fell to the fourth round to the Cowboys. So those are, I think, players with higher upside. Ernest Jones, to me, was kind of more of a safe pick than anything. But I really feel like Jabril Cox or Baron Browning had a higher upside, and I feel like they should have drafted them at this spot. But they ended up going with Ernest Jones. We'll see how that turned out for them. And then let's look at the Seahawks, who had a very sad draft. They had 3 picks. Seattle had 3 picks, guys. 3 picks. That's it. 3 picks. And they need corner, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, and wide receiver. Again, all these NFC West teams are turning a strength into a higher strength. The rest of the NFC West, we talk about the Niners just drafting running backs. The rest of the NFC West is like, we're getting receivers. So it's going to be interesting how that pans out here. They're getting nothing but receivers. You see Dwayne Eskridge. I think this is a really good pick. Again, it's one of those picks where, like, do you really need a wide receiver this high right now? But, with the whole Russell Wilson threatening to be unhappy and wanting to leave, I can see how you would want to give him more weapons, I guess. But I think the bigger question mark with them is always offensive line. And I would have thought that they would have addressed that first. But they ended up going wide receiver. Again, he's still a solid pick. I really love what he brings. He's really quick, kind of like Tutu Atwell. I think that the comparisons between the two, Dwayne Eskridge and Tutu Atwell, is going to be fun to see how their careers either takes off or not. I think those two will be compared between the two teams for a while. Let's just say it'll be fun to see if the Rams made the correct selection, choosing Tutu over Dwayne Eskridge. But still a solid pick, but they still have a lot of needs like linebacker, which I'm not sure that they ended up addressing here. I'm pretty sure they're hoping that KJ Wright is gonna resign. That's still to be determined. But I can't really be mad at the Seahawks draft. I think they did a good job for what they had, though. The reason why they only have 3 picks is because they made a terrible trade for Jamal Adams. But for what the amount of picks they had, I think they did a solid job. I really do. I'm not going to hate on it, even though I'm a Niner fan. Trey Brown, I think, was a solid pick in round 4. A scrappy player, small DB, 5'9". I mean, he could play it outside, but he's physical at the line of scrimmage. Again, he's really fast, someone you can play outside and at nickel. High energy player. This pick just screams Seattle Seahawks. High energy player. They always go for those type of guys. Niners go for those tough, physical guys, and Seattle, you can bank on them to get those high energy type of players. So Trey Brown to me plays like a Seattle Seahawk, and I think it was a solid pick for them. But yeah, that's kind of it. I think, of course, I may be a little biased, but I think the Niners had the better draft. I think they actually got better this draft, along with Seattle. I think they've gotten a couple of pieces there, but still they still have tons of holes, so we don't know what's going to happen. Followed by the Rams. I think they got a solid wide receiver. We'll see what the linebacker brings. I'm still unclear on that, but wide receiver wise, they're pretty solid right now with Matthew Stafford. That offense may be a little bit of explosiveness shown there. Still question marks at defensive line. You know, what else do they bring outside of Aaron Donald, and linebacker is really so the team that was ranked number one on defense has some question marks now on defense. And then the Cardinals, I don't really think the Cardinals got any better, guys. Like, I'm gonna be honest. I look at the Cardinals team, I think they're still like middle of the road, 500. I may be wrong. Again, this is just my assessment, but out of all the teams, I think the Cardinals are the only ones that I feel did not get any better.